What's the most vivid nightmare you've ever had? Used to get sleep paralysis. Mostly standard shit crawling at the edge of my vision, but the really bad ones were when a figure I call a Screech would shamble into the room, hood over face. Once it was looming over me, it would throw its hood back. Its face sort of looked like that creepy Momo meme that went around a while ago, except even more pale, and it had no eyes. It would just loom over me and scream, loud and very high pitch, making my brain and body go fuzzy, because my inner ear was under attack. Pretty foo that the brain can do that to itself. A few years back I'd been stressed about going back to work, and I had a lot of sleep paralysis nightmares where I had sleep paralysis and woke up into another sleep paralysis dream over and over and over. It was the worst. I felt like I was losing my sanity and my grasp on reality. The most disturbing sleep paralysis dream happened after 3 straight days of getting sleep paralysis, and it was something I can barely explain. I woke up and tried to pray. I held my hands together, but I hadn't prayed in a long time and I couldn't remember the words. I realized I wasn't holding my hands together. My left hand was holding someone else's hand and my right hand was laying straight on the bed. I woke up again to the blanket over my face and in full-on sleep paralysis. I tried making noises to wake my husband and heard someone panicking and then run to my side of the bed and lay their head on my chest with their face facing mine. They were whispering hysterically and I could feel the heaviness of their head on my chest. I'd never been so terrified, but after a few seconds of listening to the whispering I was able to make out what they were saying. It was a man rapidly saying I can't breathe over and over, gasping for air. I was so scared and I couldn't wake up. So I somehow mustered the courage to speak to him, trying to comfort him, and was able to move my left arm and rub his head and calm him down. His breathing slowed down along with the whispering and he seemed to calm down. And that was it. That man. I heard his voice the very first day I had sleep paralysis in that house. He's the man who was by husband's side of the bed, the same side he came from in this nightmare, and said help me with so much agony in his voice that made me feel deep sorrow for him. I don't wish these episodes on anyone. I hate the Inception episodes I get with sleep paralysis. It always the same thing. After the shadow demon alien thing looms over me from the side of my bed, I'm struggling with all my might to yell at it and lunge at it. Eventually I break free and I'm able to aggressively fumble out of bed to tackle said shadow, only to wake up to me laying in bed in the same position, not knowing if I'm asleep or not because I'm too scared to move. Then he comes gliding into my bedroom door and makes his way back over to me. The longest it's happened that I can remember was 9 times in a row. It's terrifying when it happens, however. If I know I'm about to go through a sleep paralysis episode, I'm not scared at the shadow demon. I'm annoyed at him, and those experiences aren't as bad. I'm able to break the cycle and wake myself up sooner. I get the same recurring dream. I'm trapped in a house. It's pitch black in the home. I can feel that it's nighttime. There's no furniture in the home. There's no one but me, but I can feel something with me. I'm on my hands and knees, crawling, trying to find a way out to the door with my hands. There's a screaming that fills the house. It goes on for hours and it's not a normal scream. It's demonic and loud and angry. I'm literally shaking. I can feel something watching me. I can feel its rage and hatred. I can feel it wanting to hurt me badly. For hours I'm crawling, covering my ears and sobbing because I'm scared and can't see a way out. One night, things change. I don't wake up from the fear of this nightmare. It continues on. I finally find a way out of the home. As I'm running to the door, I can feel clawed fingers reaching for me from behind. I hurl my body outside, trying to avoid its grasp. I hit a patio and look up. There's inky blackness moving within the darkness. I can feel it's angry that I've gotten away. I try to run to a police station. No one sees or hears me. I'm begging for help. I have no clue where I'm and something wants me dead. Everyone walks by me as if I don't exist. I walk down a hallway in the station which turns back into the halls of the home I escaped from. There's a child on the couch next to my husband. My husband is enraged. The child is absolutely beautiful, but when he looks at me, I can see there's nothing good in him. He's created from pure evil. He tells me that his father and him know my baby died and I'll be his new mother. They've been watching me for some time and think it'll be good. I'm too scared to say no and accept numbly. It seems like I parented this child for a few weeks. My husband wouldn't have any of it. He hated this evil child. I was too afraid to be anything but kind for fear of my own life. The child tells me one day he can tell him good, and he doesn't want me to suffer. He's going to leave and take his dad with him, along with my husband for not hiding his disdain for him. The home catches fire. The hallways go up in green smoke and suddenly there's markings from white chalk on the floor. The child walks into the markings. Inky blackness develops behind him, and I can see the creature that's haunted me for so long. He's 7 feet tall, huge, has hooves 4 feet, a man's torso, pitch black eyes. I'm too scared to look at him, and bury my face into the ground sobbing. I can hear the screams point of my husband as they drag him to hell. I can't help him. I lift my head and there's nothing but an empty hallway again. No trace of fire, inky blackness, the markings, or my husband. I woke up drenched in sweat and shaking. I threw up into the cup of water I'd left out before I went to bed. A couple of weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. This one's a doozy, so strap in. The nightmare began with me waking up to the sounds of thunder rumbling. I was lying on a field of grass as grey clouds loomed over my head as it started to rain. That's when I noticed something was wrong. Instead of getting rained on, the water went through me like I was a ghost. I walked around and saw my family inside the house nearby. I walked up to the house and, like with the rain, went through the door. I looked to see my family having dinner, but instead of it being myself, my mom, my dad, my little brother and my older sister, the place I sat on was filled with a young girl who looked like a female version of me. Her name was even a female version of mine. I called out to them, but it was like they couldn't hear or see me. Then it got worse. My parents said the words I was terrified of. "Hey, honey, didn't we have another son?" My dad said to my mom, to which she replied, "I don't know, dear. He was the only son we had," she said, gesturing to my brother. My dad chuckled at this and went back to eating. That was when I realized I was having a nightmare of my worst fear, being forgotten. I broke down crying, but not for long. I heard the rattling of chains and saw who else but the Grim Reaper. He pointed at me with his skeletal hand and said, "You have disturbed the living. For that, they will lose all memory of you, and your soul is mine." I picked myself up and frantically ran out of the house. The Reaper closed behind. I cried and cried out to my family to remember me, because I didn't want to die, but nobody came. I was alone, and on the verge of death. I closed my eyes in the dream, and it was over. I woke up screaming and crying. I couldn't sleep for literal days after that nightmare. I used to have nightmares when I was a kid, where my dad would say he didn't love me and would ignore me. I remember one where he was a cowboy for some reason playing poker in a saloon and he wouldn't even look at me. Woke up crying. My dad's never made me felt unloved, but he's a truck driver and was gone for long periods of time when I was a kid, so I guess I had abandonment issues. A friend of mine told me a similar dream he had where his dad would look back at him in a crowd and just shake his head before walking away. Couple years after he told me, I guess I was missing him in my dreams cause I had a dream where the same sort of thing happened just with his dad, not my own. Then I saw him looking for his dad in the dream too. Super weird. I had doomsday dreams when I was a kid, but mine were always more of an adventure. It was exciting. It gave me an adrenaline rush. Tornadoes were a common theme. We would be scrambling to gather our belongings and rushing into the basement in my childhood house. Quite often the dream would start off being outside and I would have to run home and beat the tornado. A couple other times it was earthquakes, flooding or a volcano, but the plot was always more or less the same. It was rarely scary, it was usually thrilling. Like I was starring in my own action movie, but it wasn't a movie but real. My family was usually present. Sometimes part of the thrill was having to find them and rescue them from the impending disaster though. I live in a part of the world that has natural disasters like this only once every 300 to 500 years, by the way. I've never experienced anything close to the real thing in waking life. I think my parents just let me watch too much TV as a kid. I always have quite freaky dreams, at least compared to other people I know. More memorable and vivid too. One of my worst, which still chills me, as I was part of a group of people running through a city trying to escape from some militia or something, and we were going along subway tracks. We climbed out onto the platform, and I noticed my mom was among the group of escapees still on the tracks, and she was the only one still left on the tracks when the train came. I remember me turning my head and screaming loudly when it hit her, and my boyfriend told me I woke up screaming. I'm in my room and wake up in a shot. It's a panicking feeling as I look around to see the floor is on fire and a demon is slowly advancing toward me. The demon resembles a human more than you would think. He is big and dirty with razor sharp teeth and long nails that look like he's been digging. I keep backing away screaming, and it reaches out to grab me with his mouth open wide, making a terrible screeching growl. I manage to scurry off my bed and run down the hallway to a closet where I hide on the top shelf. For a brief moment everything is dark and quiet. In a flash, the inside of the closet is in flames. I start panicking again. It's then that the demon throws the door open and pulls me out in one swift motion. Then I wake up. This is a recurring nightmare I had when I was younger.